Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today we're going to this Gittin Daf Mem Zayin. We're going to begin on Mem Vav Amud Beis by the new Mishnah. Says the Masnisan, "Hamoicheres atzmo the es bana v'lo b'kachavim." A person who sells themselves as well as their children doesn't seem like the nicest guy, and he does this selling them to b'kachavim. So ein poidin. Even though we have a whole din of redeeming people, as we've been mentioning in the previous dafim, this person we don't have to do anything with. This is just out of control. Why is it out of control? So Rashi says, Hoyil v'ragul b'kach. It's not that he did this one time. Okay, he made a mistake. That's one thing. However, the Gemara is going to say, V'hu shemach v'shan b'shilish. This is something which he's done repeatedly. So if this person is involved in this negative behavior, and maybe we redeemed him once or even twice, at a certain point, there's no need to have to do it because it's clear he's just going to keep doing it again. Almost perhaps comparable to a person who has various addictions. If you try to help them over and over and over, at a certain point you have to say this is obviously not working. However, the Mishnah concludes, once the children no longer have the control, are being controlled by the father, so then the father who died, now you can redeem the children. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Asi, which again is what we said, which is question 10. Adam shemachar atzmo u'banav kama pamim yasakein v'lo yafduhu yoiser. So machar v'shan v'shilish ein poidin isai. Okay. So hanu b'nei bei michse. There are these people, says Rashi, which is a makayim, a place. Diyazve zuzim yavikachavim. They borrowed money from an avikachavim, but they didn't have the ability to pay them back. So also the garbilahu, and so what did they do? They went and took them. Says Rashi, hayu shayvin oisim lavadim. He made they made them into slaves. So also committed Rav Huna Amrlahu ma evelahu. What should we do? It says clearly you're not supposed to redeem them. You don't have to redeem them. So Rabbi Amba, apparently this is not the situation. This is the situation which seems to be a one-time deal. Our Mishnah is talking about where it was repeated. Now they're accustomed to doing this. This is not a one-time thing, and therefore you don't have to redeem them. Hogav is a person that zavin nafshe l'ludoi. He sold himself to ludoim. Sounds like a nice group of people. Rashi actually tells us this is an umma shaychim in the adam. These are cannibals, which I think more talks about different times which a person eats. Like a Talmud Chacham is in the middle of the day, Poalim. So it talks over there, Maichli Ludim is one of the things. Again, these cannibals. Let's come into Rav Ami Yermalei, and they said, so what do we do with this guy? This is not just he has to work for them. He may end up becoming this guy's dinner. As we continue, Mem Zayin Amud Aleph, Pir Khan. Rashi says, Bedani, redeem me. Amrulei Tanana, Maicharatzmas, Vizbanav Chachavim, made by Noisai. No Paidan as Abanim, Mishum Kilkula. So normally we don't have to redeem them. Only the children because of Kilkul, says Rashi. Shalo Yutmu Ba'av Chachavim, so they don't become impure and become assimilated with these people. V'yilmadu memaseim, to learn from them. However, at least when the father's alive, you don't have to worry about him because the father's going to be influencing the children, so they're not going to necessarily be like the Avikachavim. So he says, V'koshken hacha, certainly in this situation, the ika katala, that this person could be killed. So therefore we should redeem him. So Rabbanon Rav Ami, Hay Yisrael Mummerhu. This is the Yisrael Mummer, who obviously is not adhering to the Torah and mitzvos. I saw this guy who's eating non-kosher food. How do we know the reason why he ate? Maybe it was because of latei avoin, because he wanted to eat, was hungry. However, it says Rashi, will have a min. El mummer, minim hu diamrinan maridin of a. There's a din that if a person goes down into a pit, we don't have to necessarily free him and get him out of it. Of a mummer amrinan hasim samim mekan mummer. So he says, maybe we're talking about a murmur teyavlin, the ka'achol. So amrulei baha zimna deika hater v'isura kamei v'shavak hater v'yachli isura. They had two perfectly delicious foods. The only difference is one was kosher, one was treif, and they still went out of their way to eat the Isser. Says Rashi, not only, I'm not just making this up, Adim Idol came. There was witnesses that this is the case, and therefore it's not that they were Oichon Beila Lateyavon, it was Lahachas. So Amalei Zilgo, Loi Kashavkili De'af Kanech. The Rabbanan won't let me redeem you. That's the saying. I'm sorry. The Rabbanan are not going to let me redeem you because it's clear that this is not a situation of mummer or teyavai. Reish Lakish zavin nafshe luludoi. This is an unbelievable story. Reish Lakish himself sold himself to these cannibals. Shakal bahadei chayta, and they tied a sack of lead, the gulgalta, in his skull. Says Rashi, sak kashur upakia the eagle shel even or shel iferis b'taychai. They put like lead inside the sack. Amar Gemiri the Yomi batra, on your last day. Says Rashi, kishaharganai, so when they're going to kill you, kol deboy minayhu abdile. Anything that they request, anything that you want, they'll give to you. It's like the last meal if you're on death row. Kehechi dolechel admei, in order that you'll be meichel for your blood. Basically, it's an interesting reason. It's almost like, at least we're doing this for you. So that was their rule. So Yom Batra came the last day. Yarmulei ma'nichalach. What do you want? We're about to kill you. So Yarmulu be'ina, I want akamatinhu. I want to tie you up. V'isvinhu, and basically have you sit around over here, in all wrapped up. Each one of you, I'm going to hit 1.5. Says Rashi, Klomer maka b'chatzi maka. I'm going to hit 1 hit and a half a hit. Palga. So kam tinhu v'isfinhu kol chad minayhu. Well, this was a strange request. So that's what they did. They tied themselves up. Kad machi chad chayta nafik nishmase. So he ended up hitting one, and the guy died. Charkine lishine. So the guy was clenching his teeth. It seems like he's laughing at me. I still have left half a hit. So by doing that, he was able to kill all of them. Nafik, he went out. He went out and ate and drank. Armele Barte. So he said, Armele Barte, daughter said, Lo boyas midi. Do you want anything, like you used up everything? Or Malay BT Karesi Kari. My pillow may be my stomach. Let's see, what does that mean? Bitni, my stomach, Vishuma b'mei huli karvikasas. That's like my pillow. I think it's full. Kinach nafshi shavak kaba domarika. And when he died, they took a kav of saffron. So again, this is an unusual discussion, but again, this was something in which they allowed. If you actually look in the Aruch, it says perish kivan sha'isen lo ritzainai mematek damai, like it sweetens his blood. Ve'eshahin boitam. Very interesting. They didn't give him, let you eat your last meal so that this way you'll be happy. Very interesting. The Aruch says this way you'll be more full, and therefore you'll taste better. Okay, obviously that's a very difficult Gemara, but nonetheless that's what was said. Says the Mishnah, a person sells his field to a non-Jew, so this is referring to not just Stam but Eretz Yisrael. So maybe many bikurim, maybe they take an oil. Even though it was a sale, nonetheless we're going to kanas you in a certain way. Says Rashi, the b'chol shana, every year, tzarich likach min avichachavim bikuri b'peroteha b'damim yikarim meviim Yerushalayim. You still have to pay and bring. You have to pay this guy for the value of their first fruits, and you have to bring those first fruits to Yerushalayim. So even though you don't own the field anymore, you sold it, but almost like as a way to deter you from selling your field. So therefore we require that you have to keep doing this. Says Rashi, we don't want you to sell the land. And if you do sell it, you'll probably realize it was a big mistake, because now you have to keep buying back over and over the Bikurim. You're going to try to redeem it and get the land back. So this is the Gemara. So I'm a Rabbi. So we're going to see Rabbi versus Rabbi Lezer. Even though it's true that there is no actual Kenyan that the Eretz Yisrael regarding of Chachavim, that they don't have the ability to physically own the land, lahafkia midi meiser, to be able to remove the chi of meiser. There's still going to be a chi of meiser, even though it was sold to another Chachavim. Shneimar the pasuk says kili haaretz, and which means to me is the land. Li kedushas haaretz. Nonetheless, there is at least enough of a kinyan in Eretz Yisrael regarding being that they have the ability to dig holes and caverns and the like. So the pasuk shows that it could be sold to them, as Rashi says, for all their needs. So there's a distinction, according to Rabbi, that if an Chachamim would purchase the land, it works as far as them being able to do certain work on the land. However, it doesn't give them enough ownership that the requirement of Meiser was taken away. There's still a Chi of Meiser. It goes, no. The truth is that the land is strong enough that if the Oiv Chachamim sells it, they sell to another Chachamim, that Taki, he does own the land, and therefore there's no Chi of Meiser anymore. Shnemer digancha, lo digan of Chachamim. The whole Chi of Meiser is dafka if it's your land, but not if it's Oiv Chachamim. Says Rashi, Sh'im mircha of Chachamim. Then let's say a non-Jew smoothed out the grain, dehein shalo b'shas miruach, and it was his at the time of the smoothing. Shu gomer malachtan. That's considered to be the end of the malacha of the grain. They feel lachem Yisrael b'shvilan, even if Yisrael, it was purchased from Yisrael for them. If it grew in the land of Chachavim, and Yisrael bought the land for this, and they ended up smoothing out the grain, then chayavim, then the Jew would be chayav in separating meiser. The karka Eretz Yisrael b'yad Chachavim lo hufka kedushasa. So actually, the kedusha has not been removed. The truth is, they don't have the ability to be able to do this to the land. That the land belongs to Hashem. Okay, so we have this machlokas when it comes to Avichabim who has land, whether or not they have the ability to again do this cultivating of the land, make holes, pits, and cisterns, and also then regarding Meiser. So, what is this machlokas? Mar Savar, the pasuk says, the pasuk clearly says that it's your grain, but not Avichavim's grain. Mar Savar, diguncha, a fully processed grain in a pile. That's what it means. V'digun Avichavim. So how do I know that even though that an Oiv Chachavim can be mafgil midi meiser, nonetheless he has a kinyan on being lachbor bor sheikhon minus? Then not. When it comes to these different things that have to be left over for the poor, if it belongs to Chachavim, meiser. So the din is that these things are still chayv in meiser. El imkin hifker, unless everything became hefker, unless they made onus. Says Rashi, stam and hefker. Ubatur min meiser. Stam is going to be hefker, lefker shechem peya, and therefore, because it's considered to be hefker laniyim, it's patul meiser. Shnem Rabah Levi ki ein lo chelik v'nachli moch. Only someone who has no connection to it. Yatsa elu sheishem chelik v'nachli moch. Shahari af loy hein mufkarin. V'aleka v'shechem apaya shalav chachavim chayav v'maiser. Okay. So hey Chidam, what's the case? Elim b'di Yisrael. If you want to tell me that originally this belonged to the Jew, it says Rashi, Shanichan Yisrael b'sadehu, v'liktinu Ovi Chachavim, that this belonged to a Yid, and the Ovi Chachavim gathered up this grain. The Kaimer, and it's come to tell you, De'im Chazer Ovi Chachavim b'machal Yisrael. That again, it would belong to the Jew, and then the Ovi Chachavim did all this to the ground, to the grain, and then he sells it to the Yid, the Chayiv L'Asr, and the Jew has to take off Meiser there. El Im Ken Hifkir Yisrael Rishon B'Sadeh, unless he was mafkir it. So it says the Gemara, so Hechan Emilim Yisrael V'lik Tinhu Ovi Chachavim, that this poor Ovi Chachavim gathered it up. El Im Ken Hifkir, so he said that unless the Yid is mafkir, hamifkir b'kaime. It is hefker. Says Rashi, the kol lekah shechapeya hefkerheim. That is the definition of what lekah shechapeya is. He doesn't have a right to it. Elav de'avchavim. The field belonged to the non-Jew. V'liktin hu Yisrael. And the poor person in this case is actually the Jew, was the one who was gathering it up. So taima the hefker. The whole reason is because it was hefker. Halo hefker chayev. However, it wouldn't be hefker. It would be chayev. So we see that a field of an akum is in fact chayiv and meiser. Lo oyom the Israel really belonged to the Israel, and v'litin whoever chachavim, and the non-Jew was the one who gathered it up. He was the poor person. The kakamrin hamifkri v'kaima, it is hefker. Nehi the mifkri adait to the Israel. It's hefker in the das of the Israel. Adait to chachavim mafkri, but in his mind, it's not considered hefker. Tashma Israel shalachach sadeh mi'avi chachavim. You have an Yisrael who purchased a field from a non-Jew. Ad shel haviu shlish, until the vegetation grew a third, v'chazer machroloi, and then he sold it to the Akum. Mishaviu shlish, and they grew a third. So chayeves b'maiser. So in that situation, the Yisrael who then buys it is chayev in maiser. Shkvar nischayva, because he was already chayev. So nischayva in lo, nischayva lo. So it grew to a third in the Rishus of Yisrael. So since it grew into a third in the Rishus of Yisrael, it's Chayv and Meiser. It doesn't matter that an Akum owned it before or after, which is mashma, but if only the Akum owned it, you'd be potter. So this is actually Kasha and Rabba. So Achmaiskina and Besuria. We're talking a specific case in Surya, says Rashi, the Meiser Didei Mid Rabbanon. There actually is a chiyav d'Rabbanan, the sham yesh kinin b'avi chachavim lahafkiya. And there the din is different. That chachavim has the ability when they purchase it that it be that the chiyav of meiser can get removed. Okay, so that's what it's on the surah. Ksaver kibush yachid lishmi kibush, because the fact that David, who conquered this land, it's not considered to have which is Aram Sova, is not considered to be the same level of Eretz Yisrael. And therefore, the Chiv is only Midrabanan in general, and therefore, because of that, when it comes to an Akum, Taka, who would purchase this land, it would be Potter. However, as Rabbi said, when it comes to an Ovicham who purchased lands in Eretz Yisrael, the Kinyan is not strong enough to remove the Meiser, it's still Chiv Meiser. Tashma. Yisrael, let's stop for a second, look at question 11. Leket shechupeya shalokat ha'akum mistay Yisrael. You have a Jewish field, owned by a Jew, and an akum who's poor gathered up the leket shechupeya, and then he sold it to Yisrael. So he sold the leket shechupeya to Yisrael. So is that Jew obligated in meiser? So we say that he's chayv in meiser. Now the question is why? Shouldn't we say that lekashich and peya, the din should be that it's potter from meiser? But over here, an akum is one who gathered it up. So he says, you're chayv in meiser. Elim kin hifkirin Yisrael rishon b'sadeu hefker gomer lakol. Unless he made an absolute hefker for everyone. But in this situation, even though it was hefker, was, as we said, that what happened was that the Ovi Chavim gathered it, right? Right, the Israel, the Oyom the Israel, the Latino Ovi Chavim, or the Ka'amrit HaMifkri V'Kaima, Nehi the Mafkri Adait the Israel, Adait the Ovi Chavim will Mifkri. So if he was Mafkri, he has to be Mafkri completely in order for the Yisrael not to then have to take off Meisers. However, in this case, otherwise he would be chayiv in Trumas and Meisers. That's the idea behind that. Tashma. Yisrael v'avikachavim shalochu sad b'shutfus. You have a Jew and a non-Jew. They purchased a field as partners together. As we continue to Mem Zayin Mebez, Tevel v'chulin mu'ravin zebazeh. Divrei Rabbi. Now he holds that there's a mixture, and therefore they're all mixed. And how about split it? So Rashi says, Ein l'cha kol chit v'chit shin chetzi tevel v'chetzi chulin. There's nothing in which, not a single piece that does not have this mixture. Shechel kavachavim potter, because we know that the portion of the avachavim is potter. However, the chelak of Yisrael is chayiv, so it becomes problematic. Dibri Rabbi Shemigmil Omer Shel avachavim potter Shel Yisrael chayiv. No, the portion of these of the avachavim is potter. However, Yisrael is chayiv. Says Rashi Achar Shecholku, divided up. Havi Shel Yisrael Tevel Gomer, and the Jewish part is considered to be Tevel, and the idea, as Rashi explains, the machok is whether you hold Yesh Breira or Ein Breira. So Ad Kan Lo Poligi El Damar Savi Yesh Breira Mar Savi Ein Breira. With the Kol Yalma Yesh Kin Lo V'Chavim Beretz Yisrael Avki Miyad Meiser. We see clearly that the Obed Chachavim, who's a partner, has enough power when he purchases, at least as a partner again, partial owner of this land in Eretz Yisrael, that he is not chayiv. There's no chayiv in Meiser when it comes to his foods. So we see clearly that he has the power to be able to remove the chayiv Meiser. So hachinami b'Syria, we're talking about in Syria where it's only a din d'Rabbanan, b'ksaver kibush achad lo shmi kibush, as we said before, and because of that, the din is over here. It's going to be potter because it's. They have the ability to remove the it's lahafkiya miyad meiser, but not in Eretz Yisrael. If you sell your field to a non-Jew, so he said that you still have to continue to give bikurim over and over again because of tikkun olam, and they tikkun olam in midaraisa low. The only reason why you have to give out bikurim is only to try to deter you from doing this, and hopefully you'll buy it back, which is mashma that really there is no chiyuv of bikurim, because maybe again it shows, as Rashi, if they don't have the ability to remove the kedusha, so again it shows clearly from our Mishnah that Ikar Hadin, when they do purchase this land, really they do have the koyach to be able to remove the Chi of Meiser. Because why is it because of Tikkun Olam that these has to do it? So Amar Ravashi Shtei Tekanos Havi. There's actually two Tekanos. Mikar originally Havi Meisim Midaraisa Kivan Dechazadika Mikri Mizabne. So we saw that even though Midaraisa, you're right, there is a Chiyuv of giving Bikurim, because they don't have the ability to remove it. So they saw that they were like, you know what, I'm going to sell it to Avichavim. The Ksavri b'Kedushasa Kaime, right? They justified that since the Kedusha stayed on the land anyway, they sold their fields to the Akam and felt that they were doing nothing wrong, since they would Midaraisa buy the Bikurim and the Meiser from the Akam, and now the Akam actually owns the land, but so what, right? I'm not doing anything wrong, the Kedusha still stands. So that became problematic because people were just selling their fields and to an akum, and they're like, okay, fine, so I'll buy back the bikurim. I'm not really doing anything wrong. The kedusha is still there. So we see again, as Rashi points out here, really there is a chiyuv because the Akum does not have the koyach to hafkiv any meiser, but tekinuhu delo leisu. There are misakin that the Yisrael should not bring the bikurim, and they saw that by doing that, maybe it's going to get Jewish people to think, you know what, wow, I really did something terrible because now the kedusha has been removed from the land. The people were still sold it, right? And it wasn't an issue because they didn't lose any money after it. Become mishtakun biyad chachavim. Hadatekinuhu delesu. Then they went back to the original way and said, okay, in fact, you do in fact have to bring it. But this was an issue. Says Rashi, he said the people weren't redeeming their fields back because they thought, okay, fine, it's not a problem. So even though, again, we required, we said, okay, stop doing it. They're like, okay, fine. They just forgot about it entirely, and they just didn't redeem their fields. So once the whole purpose was for them to redeem their fields. So once they weren't doing it anyway, they said, you know what? Let's go back and require them to take off bikurim. But midiraisa, really, there is a chiyuv, which again is an unbelievable thing that they were able to make that takana, where midiraisa, where there's a chiyuv of bikurim, and they stopped. Okay, question 12. Hamaycher sadehu akum lokechu maybe bikurim mitikan oil. Ma'adin midiraisa b'chiyagam imchayev liknais meha'akum lehevi bikurim. This is actually deraisa requirement. So he said totally beplukta. So machlokas the im yesh kinin akum afkia karka mikedushasa. That when they purchase the land, they have the ability to remove the kedusha. Itmar. Hamaycher sadehu leperis. A person sells his field, but he only does it for fruit, says Rashi. The buyer only has rights to be able to use the land, to be able to eat the fruits. Ad eser shanim, for let's say 10 years. And then afterwards it goes back to the original owner. So Rav Yochanan Mevi b'Kaira. So in that situation, you bring, and you also will read the din of Bikurim. So why? Both of them require bikurim, but the question is it really a requirement that you're also kaira? You're supposed to make the whole decoration of Romeo ben Avi, etc. You do everything because kinyan peres kinyan aguf dami. The fact that you purchased even just the fruits, that's considered like you own the land as well. It says Rashi, therefore yachol loimer mareshis pri ha'adama asher nasatali. You can even say, from the first fruits of the earth which you have given to me. Even though they don't really own the land, but we say kinyan peros is kinyan aguf, and therefore you could also not just bring the bikurim, but also be kaira. Okay, so that's the machlokas which we find in many places in Shas. So you ask the question, you Reish Lakish hold that you do not read because kinyan Paris is lavki kinyan aguf, but the pasuk says ulvei secha. It says to your house. This is again regarding bikurim. It says v'samacht b'chol ha'toiv malamed she'adam mevi bikurim bikuri ishta v'kairi. We see that a person can even bring the bikurim of his wife and read. Now, when it comes to his wife, this is considered to be nichsim alug, and he has a right to her peros. How do you have a right to be able to be kairei if you only have a right to the peros? Must be because we see that kinyan peros is kinyan aguf. Well, maybe in this situation, the fact pumfaker is a raya to me. That the fact that the pasuk needs to allow it in this case shows that normally it doesn't work because that kinyan peros is lavki kinyan aguf. You get down Eisver Shulchan Rav Yochanan. Eisver Rav Shimon ben Lakish Rav Yochanan. Lavei Malavan Shadam Maybe Bikurin Yishno B'Kairei. The pasuk says dafka over there. You read hasam udiksil v'veisacha only because there's a pasuk. Otherwise not. So again, you see from here, it must be because kinyan peres is lavki kinyan aguf. Actually, from here, I learn out from here pomfakert. So again, this is the way of looking at it on either angle. Esvei hayaba b'derech. Person's on the road. Bikuri ishto biyadai. And you have the bikurim of your wife that is in your hands. You found out that your wife died. Now the din is that when your wife dies, you're yarish all the things, which means not only the fruits, but you're also kaina the gufa karka, the land as well. So maybe kara. So only in that situation can you read, which is mashma mesa in, lo mesa lo. Not if she didn't die, you're not allowed to, which again seems to be a steer from what we said before. But the point is, according to this, it's clear that kinyan peres is lavki kinyan aguf. You can only be kaira dafka in a situation once the wife had died, you were yarish the land. until you're Yerush the land, you can't. Now, who didn't have the loy mesa? Even a situation where the wife did not die, still he's made v'kayra. So mesa is tzrichale. We need the case of when she died that he reads. Maybe you should make the following gezerah. Who of what? The young Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Chanina, he said, "Batzrin b'shigrin biyad shliach," that if you sent it in the hand of a shliach, who made shliach b'derech, and the shliach dies on the road, maybe ain't a kayra. In that situation, you read, but you do not. You bring the bikurim, but you don't read. What says Rashi? It has to be that everything has to happen with one person, the taking and the bringing. So v'hachinami, says Rashi, you would think that the lakicha and the haba has to be with the same person. But since the wife died, so now it was transferred ownership to the husband. So therefore, maybe the din is you wouldn't be kar there either. Actually, it has to be with the same. Kamashmulan, it doesn't make any difference. In that case, sure, it's true. If it was given biyad a shliach and the shliach died, so then it's maybe in a kaira, because the lakich and the biyad did not come with the same. Over here, we're talking about the wife and the husband, so therefore we say kamashmulan. The din is that it's still fine. Says Rashi, maybe another shliach should come. If the first rishon didn't die in ukaire, the shliach is not kairin. Because when it comes to a shliach, he cannot say asher nasatali because it was not his. Okay. Ditmar, Vyazol Tamayu. They go according to the reason. Ditmar, Hamaycher Sadeu, person sells his field as we continue Memchas Aleph. Bisman Shahayovel Noyig, in a time in which Yovel is Noyig, says Rashi. Kol Mechiris Karka Lepera, Shari Chayzar Gov B'Yovel. If you think about it, when it comes to Yovel, because there's Yovel, that everything goes back to the original owner, it's comparable to selling land for the fruits only, because I'm still going to get the land. So really, in a time where Yovel is Naig, it's always a case of Kinyan Peros, where there's not really Kinyan Aguf, because you can't own the land after Yovel goes back. So Rav Yochanan maybe a Kaira, Shalkish maybe a Kaira. Rav Yochanan maybe a Kaira, Kinyan Peros, Kinyan Aguf Dami. Even though it's going to go back by Yovel, right? Shalkish maybe a Kaira, Kinyan Peros, Lavki Kinyan Aguf Dami, and therefore when Yovel is Naig, you're not kaira because it's not your land because you can give it back. Why do you need these two situations? So the itmar bahi kamar shlachish, maybe only here does Reish Lakish say that you do not read the chika nachis adaita de perika nachis, that when he buys the field his intention is only on the fruits, since that's the reality. Avol bahach, when it comes to yovel, since during the Yovel you're also buying the land, so maybe you would think that it's more like Kinyan Haguf, and therefore he'll hold like the Shita of Rabbi Yochanan that you tackle will be maybe the Kaire, because okay, fine. The first case, all you did was sell the fruits. You had never sold the land. Here, you're selling the whole thing. You're just going to get it back. So maybe in that situation, that is enough to be made with kaira, according to Reish Lakish. Maybe only there does Rabbi Yochanan say you're made with kaira by yovel. But in the situation where you're just selling the fruit, not the land, so maybe the din is different. Question. We'll stop there. TA 15. So he said, in Chuvas HaMaisros, because it says the gancha v'lo dagan akam, v'chein l'inyan bikurim, l'inyan lachpor b'boidos, being able to dig up the land. What is the reason why we would think there is a kinyan? So l'inyan lachpor b'boidos, v'yolafla miva'aretz nosan livnei adam, because it says the land was given to bnei adam, and therefore they're also bnei adam. Ad kan.